On this edition of Independent Sources, Divas of Science. Girls of color are encouraged in the fields of math and robotics.
Black Dolls. The documentary explores the history and pride associated with the toys.
And Grandma's Place, the big business of selling ethnic dolls and books. Welcome to Independent Sources. I'm Diana Ravinka.
And I'm Gary Pierre-Pierre. Divas for Social Justice is a Bedford Stuyvesant-based nonprofit organization that's trying to help underprivileged girls and communities of color. Divas stands for Digital, Interactive, Visual, Arts, Sciences.
The group's latest project has them assembling a robotics team to build a machine that can address climate change. The founders say it's part of their effort to get young people in communities of color to pursue careers in math and science.
I spoke with one of the co-founders, Clarissa James, and the robotics project manager, Professor Andrea Taylor, about how they plan to appeal to little girls in particular. Clarissa, why did you want to start Divas for Social Justice?
Well, in 2007, I graduated from Hunter College, and I was part of the Integrated Media Arts program. And I had a very close friend, her name is Shasha Fang. We decided together that we wanted to start Divas for Social Justice because we wanted to encourage young women of color in underserved communities to get involved in technology, because even though we were attending a working class college, we observed that there were very few people of color in the program that we were in. And then when we did more research, we realized within the information technology field, out of the 35% of women that are represented, less than 10% are women of color.
So tell us about the robotics program.
The robotics program actually was inspired by a blog post that I wrote for a local online publication in Bedford Stuyvesant called the Bed-Stuy Patch. I wrote a blog post regarding wanting to use digital technology towards civic engagement, right? And I received an email from Professor Andrea Taylor, and she told me that she worked for Pace University and that she was working in the information technology field and she wanted to volunteer. And she came over, we met, and we started talking, and Professor Taylor was really the inspiration for us having a robotics program.
Well, here we are. Tell us about, why is it important? She mentioned working class girls at Hunter. Why is it important for women to be in these fields?
It's important for everyone to be in this field. Computing and technology touches every aspect of every field, today. And we need new innovators, we need new problem solvers to a lot of the world's problems. And a lot of young women, young girls, are not pushed into these fields when they're in school. And they have a great aptitude for it without really understanding that they have it.
Why aren't they pushed in these fields? Why aren't women pushed in these fields?
I think it's a broad reason for that. I think parents aren't always sure about the field of computing being a great career for young women to go into. The view of computing is that you're a nerd or you're a geek. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, and you're like in a back room somewhere programming, and that's the job. And then also, I believe in schools, a lot of teachers may not push, for young girls to go into that, or that they're not advised that that's the major they should follow, in college.
So, Clarissa, how do you make robotics sexy?
I think, one thing that I've observed in the programming that we've done over the past 5 years is that girls are interested in technology, like Professor Taylor said. I think what happens is, like she said, there's a stereotype of I'm going to be seen as a nerd, or I may want to appeal to the opposite sex, so I have to dumb myself down. But one thing that we bring to the table as an organization, even with the robotics program, is giving them a voice to create socially conscious media and use computer programming for social change in their own communities. So just giving them the example of, okay, you can be a real change agent in your community through technology is reason enough, because you're giving a voice to a community that is often silenced and often portrayed in a certain way in the media. But we're giving them the tools that say, no, your voice matters. And even with the robotics program, it was very important to us that it represented social change. And as a result of Hurricane Sandy, we decided to talk to the kids about climate change and the importance of that, and what was the robot going to do for climate change.
What are the challenges you've faced in this program? Where is most resistance coming from?
I wouldn't say necessarily resistance. I think it's an understanding of how important it is, to young people, to children, to the community, and then also availability. We're having a hard time getting enough young people to come into the program because they're not aware of what it's about. Or, again, their parents aren't aware of what it's about. We just did a holiday party at Restoration in Bedford Stuyvesant, and we brought the robot out, that the children had worked on, had built, had created, and had it do some different activities. We demonstrated the robot. And the children that came into the room, every age, they were amazed. They fell in love with it. They wanted to know how it worked. Wanted to show them not to be intimidated by the technology. They can't break the robot. Let's redesign it. This is, if you wanted to do something else, how would you make that happen? And then explaining to them that besides designing the robot to solve a particular problem, then we programmed it and fed that program into the brain of the robot, and that you can change those programs and have the robot do something else. So the parents were thrilled. This first time they're seeing anything like a robot up close, and trying to get them to understand robotics. And the children, as I said, they were just thrilled. We got a lot of children to sign up. So I think once you put it out there visually and make it easy to understand what this is and what it's about and how important it is, then the interest, is
Clarissa, how does one enroll in this program? What are the mechanics of it all?
Okay, well, all of our programming is free. That's very important to us because in underserved communities, there's a lack of access to digital technology. So we really want to serve the community in that capacity. We've used social media as a form of recruitment. They can go to our website at www.divasforsocialjustice.org. Our contact information is there. And then also we do a lot of recruitment through schools and the public library system.
This is a pilot program. What are the plans for the future? Where do you want to take this?
We really want this program to grow, into a program, a STEM program curriculum,
What does that mean, a STEM program?
Okay, so STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. But the aspect that we want to add to it is the arts. So it would actually be a Diva STEAM program, right? And that's really important because if we're going to create, the innovators of tomorrow, right, the arts is always involved. So to me, the arts and the science go together, right? So instead of just using the left side of your brain, you're using the right side, and we're creating a whole curriculum around that.
Andrea, where else in the country is something like this happening? Is this unique to New York?
No, not at all. All over the country. The idea came from Dean Kamen, the creator of the Segway. He thought that if children and families and schools are so involved with sports and they come out full force for sports programs, wouldn't it be wonderful if they came out that in the same way for science and technology? So he created a program, this robotics program. It's called FIRST, and it talks about innovation in science and technology. And the idea is that you form teams in schools. They're in middle schools, junior high schools, and high schools. And these teams compete in huge arenas with their robots. And the idea is about gracious professionalism. You're competing, but it's not something so, it's just the highest level of sportsmanship. So children are learning about science and technology. They're not being intimidated by using the technology. There's a research arm of it, a design and a programming piece. And every year there's a challenge, and the challenge is some world program that the children are then asked to research, come up with solutions for, and then use the robot to solve some of these problems.
All right, unfortunately we're out of time. Okay. Andrea Taylor, Clarissa James, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still up on independent sources, exploring the history and beauty of black dolls.
Before that, Abby Ishola has some other news.
Thanks, Gary. Here's a look at some headlines from the ethnic and community media. Latino Muslims in the Bronx are hoping to build stronger community ties. Norwood News reports that many Hispanic Muslims have had to find homes at other ethnic mosques since there aren't any designed for their own community. Back in the early 90s, a Hispanic Muslim organization called Alianza Islamica was started by a few Puerto Rican Muslim converts. The organization eventually closed down in 2003 due to internal conflicts. In other news from the borough, the North Bronx is emerging as a cultural hub for the city's Bangladeshi community. Bangla Patrika reports that the number of ethnic Bangladeshi in the Norwood section of the Bronx has been growing over the past decade. Several grocers offering Bangladeshi food have set up shop. There are also Bangladeshi restaurants and community organizations such as North Bronx Bangladeshi American Association. Leaders in the community are currently making plans to host the area's first ever Bangladeshi street fair next summer. What's more important, cleaner streets or more parking? Residents in Washington Heights and Inwood are debating this after the city announced it would clean their streets twice a week instead of 4 times. The ruling came in response to a request from Community Board 12 to ensure more parking for residents. But many in the area fear that rodents will become a bigger problem as a result of reduced cleanliness. That from the Uptowner. Hispanic churches in Williamsburg are hanging on for dear life as gentrification leads to the decrease in the number of Latino congregants. El Diario La Prensa reports that many Latinos who once lived in the area have relocated to different states due to rising rents and limited affordable housing. Some of the area's churches have been hit so hard they've been forced to share space and reduce community outreach projects to lower expenses. Nightlife in Williamsburg has also been affected by gentrification in the area. Café Concert, a popular French bar in the once hipster-dominated area, has succumbed to the rapid change in Williamsburg. When the venue opened back in 2004, it became an instant hit, offering live performances by popular jazz artists and indie rock bands. But as Williamsburg ushers in a new breed of chic and trendy residents, concerts and noisy bars have become passé. Those were just a few headlines from the ethnic and community media. Back to Gary and Vianora.
Thanks, Abby. Back in 1939, Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife, Dr. Mamie Phipps Clark, both psychologists, conducted a groundbreaking and controversial study. They asked black children to choose between a black and a white doll.
The dolls were pretty much the same except for skin color and hair, but the black children overwhelmingly said that the white dolls were nicer. The test became significant in American history because it was instrumental in the Brown versus the Board of Education decision that led to the desegregation of schools.
The study also exposed a self-hatred of blackness that many scholars have attributed to the effects of racism and segregation on the black psyche.
Recently, black dolls have been making a comeback as more socially conscious parents of color are demanding that their children be represented on store shelves. Samantha Knowles documents this increase in popularity in her film, Why Do You Have Black Dolls?
We normally say dolls have a story to tell. I love the images that they represent, and I love the facial features.
I love black dolls. It's not like selling jewelry. You look at earrings, you go, oh, no, this is a conversation. This is a life.
Black dolls have been around for as long as humans have been around. And the history is important because long after you have vanished, then the history still remains.
I make black dolls first simply because I'm black. You know, it's funny, your customers too have a lot of influence. They actually tell you, where's the big girl? So I started making big bone dolls. Well, where's the sisters with the boots? So here's the sister with funky hair and boots.
I have black dolls because they're a reflection of me and my people. At the end of the day, what matters to me is that we embrace our cultural heritage and understand its pivotal role in making us who we are.
See, I think women know they're beautiful, but when you see a doll, that's signature. Yes, I know I am, because someone had enough thought to create this. That's what it's about. It's about loving who you are.
Samantha, thank you for being in studio with us today. I'd like to start with a short clip from your film.
How did you choose the doll? How did you decide?
Oh, because there's a big glass with all of these dolls, and their name is on their back. So I picked that one because when I went there, I had curly hair and it looked just like me. So I picked this doll.
That one? Why do you like her?
Because she's black and she looks nice. And she looks just like you.
Samantha, not all black children prefer black dolls over white. How easy was it for you to gather these particular girls?
Well, it was actually pretty easy. One of the girls, Elizabeth, is my little cousin, and so I contacted her mom toward the end of production. We had already shot most of the film, and we really felt that we needed kids. And I asked her, I was like, can Elizabeth be in the film? And she was so excited, and she said yes right away. And I showed up at her house, and she had 3 of her friends with her. So it was really great, and I was lucky because they all had parents who gave them black dolls, and so they were really excited to play with their black dolls and to play with mine because I brought mine as well. So that was a great experience.
How much of your decision to make this film had to do with your personal experience of growing up with black dolls, and how much did it have to do with what kids feel today, what black kids feel towards dolls today?
It actually was a combination of both of those things. I got the idea for the film when I was talking with my friend when I was a sophomore in college, and we were talking about this very famous test called the Clark doll test. And in the test, a black child is shown a white doll and a black doll, and they're sort of asked different questions about which doll they prefer. And most of the time, the black children preferred the white doll. So we were sort of talking about that experience.
That was a test done in the 1940s.
Yes, the 1930s, 1940s, and then it was later used in Brown versus Board of Ed to make a case against segregation. So my friend and I were talking about that test, and we were both very grateful that our parents gave us black dolls. And we were kind of, sharing stories about, I always had black dolls growing up. My mom would every Christmas we got a new black doll. And the title of the film really came from that conversation and me telling my friend about a time when I was young, and I invited a friend over. I lived in a predominantly white area in upstate New York, and I invited her over for a play date. And she was white, and she came over, and I pulled out my dolls, and I was so excited to play with them. And she turned to me and she said, "Why do you have black dolls?" So when I brought that up in my conversation with my friend, that became a really big part of why I felt I need to do the film.
Well, today the percentage of black kids who prefer a black doll over a white one has decreased to, according to a study done in 2009, to about 32%. What does that figure mean to you, and is that an accurate representation of what goes on within the community?
I think that figure really highlights the idea that things are changing, and there's an increased availability of black dolls. It still is not perfect, I will say, But I think that, you know, more awareness about the importance of black dolls and seeing them as more than playthings will really sort of help things get even better.
In your film, you wanted to show that the black doll is more than just a play object, that it also reflects the pride and the cultural heritage of the community. To what extent do kids who own black dolls are aware of that?
You know, I think the power of black dolls is that kids are not always aware that, okay, this is a cultural artifact and I have to respect it. I think that it's, you know, they're sort of playing with the doll and they don't really realize how important it is, and it's just sort of embedded in it. I know that's how I felt growing up, where I never thought about them being black. I just thought that they looked like me, and as a result, I felt like I was beautiful. So I think that that's really the power of black dolls, is that it's a very subtle message for kids.
What's been the response to your film so far?
It's been shocking. I mean, I remember when I first screened it, it was done as my senior thesis, and I first screened it on campus, and a friend of mine came to see it, and I'll never forget what she said. I had seen her the day before, and she said she was coming to the screening, and she sort of told her own story about black dolls, and she's like, you know, I had black dolls, but I used to throw them around. I didn't really care about them, but I'm still interested to see your film. And then after the film, she immediately raised her hand and she said, your film changed my mind about how I feel about black dolls. And I was shocked, and I was so excited, and since then it's just, I mean, that's sort of been the response. You know, I was just in a film festival last week, and somebody else said that about the film, and you know, there have been some articles about it, and the response has just exceeded my expectations, really.
Samantha Knowles, thank you very much for talking with us about your film.
Thank you.
When we come back, finding success selling ethnic books and dolls.
My name's Reggie. Just recently, my wife and I took in her sister's children. Now, we already had 4, so I went from becoming a family man to a man with a bigger family. Now, you can't eat love, so I don't know how I'm gonna feed them tonight. How was that, Rich?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold, man.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Finally from us tonight, just before the break, we told you about some of the historical controversies surrounding black dolls. Our final piece profiles Dawn Harris-Martine, a woman who has made a name for herself marketing multi-ethnic dolls and books.
Martine's shop is in Harlem, a neighborhood whose changing demographics are giving her a whole new clientele. Zafis LeBrun tells us more in this report.
Dawn Harris-Martine has run Grandma's Place book and toy store in Harlem for the last 6 years.
I like the uniqueness and the smallness of the store, so I can't call it a toy store, it's a toy boutique. And that makes me really have to be particular about the things that I buy, and I pick every toy and book that comes in here.
Martine goes to great lengths to make sure that her shelves stay stocked with multiculturally themed books that often go out of print.
Sometimes I have to go to Canada. Sometimes I have to go to Amazon.com. Sometimes I have to go to discount bookstores and whatnot to find these books to bring to the store so that parents can have really good books so kids can see positive, beautiful images of themselves.
Although the boutique has made its name selling ethnically diverse books and toys, that was not always the case. Martine is a retired second-grade teacher who loved teaching children and adults how to read. She first envisioned the boutique as a literacy center, but that didn't take off.
I had 50,000 volumes of books in my house next door. I moved the books in and tried to sell used books, and people weren't buying books, so I started putting toys into the store. The people came in for the toys, so I continued to, press the toys, but the books stayed here.
Now the toys are soaring in popularity, more specifically the black and other ethnic dolls that she carries.
The thing that sold the most during my first year's opening were the black Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls. I must have sold 600 Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls in the first 5 years. Wow. The company went out of business. I couldn't find any more, and I started looking for someone to make Raggedy Ann type dolls, and I found a woman in Florida that makes these handmade dolls, and so I moved towards the handmade dolls, and when people came in, I asked them, and they were looking at the dolls. I said, if you have a picture, she can make a doll that looks like your child.
Martine's clients come from as far as New Jersey, and some trek from Brooklyn to get their dolls. She says that Harlem's ethnic diversity is contributing to the doll's success and capsizing the notion that black children prefer white dolls.
When kids come in here, Asian children like black dolls, white children like black dolls, black children like black dolls. It's the clothing, it's, how she looks, what they can do with her hair, but it's not a rejection. But I make sure that I buy beautiful dolls. I think that's the criteria.
That's the criteria.
Yeah.
It's a criteria she hopes to maintain as she plans for the future. Right now, her granddaughters and part-time students help her run the boutique. However, she hopes to eventually create a board of like-minded people who can take over. The plan is to keep the shelves stocked with stories about and dollhouses populated with multicultural people. Zyphus Lebrun, Independent Sources.
That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned.
On behalf of the entire Independent Sources team, we'd like to wish you and your family happy holidays.
Till next time, be independent-minded.